Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
5:06 Tuesday morning. Thanks for joining us here on O'Connor and Company. Coming up at 7:05, Representative Andy Harris. He's a Republican congressman from Maryland. He's also a medical doctor, a physician, not one of those osteopaths that Julie Gunlock offended yesterday. We're going to talk to him about where things stand in Congress.
Oh, dear.
Oh, people were not very happy with your full-on assault against osteopathy.
Boo-hoo.
Boo-hoo. Quack it back to the pond, says Julie. Not me. I make no judgments. 8:05.
I did a face.
At 8:05, Susan Faricia for the Washington Times, as Congress comes back, figure out how do you run a government without an executive in the White House. 8:35, Representative Ronnie Jackson, member of Congress, also a physician, also former physician of the President of the United States. So he what?
Nothing. You just need to put a modifier in front of physician. Real physician. All right, let's keep moving on. Sorry.
So he's also not an osteopath.
No.
He also doesn't use voodoo dolls and leeches.
Massage your head.
What was the phrenology? That's what that was called.
Yeah.
Phrenology, where they would study the bumps on your heads and decide whether you were going to be a murderer or not.
You're trying to get me in more trouble. I know.
I am. It's exactly what I'm going to do. It's my job. Yesterday, Joe Biden, how many times has he tried to clean everything up from the debate now? First he went to the Waffle House. Hey, we had a problem. We had a bad night. Go to the Waffle House. It'll fix everything.
So touch my hand.
That did not work. Then he did the rally, but his brain froze in the middle of the rally. That did not work. Then he scheduled the debate the interview with George Stephanopoulos.
Well,
that
before
did
that,
not
before
work.
that, he had maybe you're talking about the rally, but he had a fundraiser in the Hamptons, a fundraiser in a house in the Hamptons where he brought his teleprompter.
Yeah, and he had trouble with it.
Right.
Then he scheduled the George Stephanopoulos interview. That did not go well. Then he showed up at the black church. That did not go well.
Right.
So yesterday he decided, all right, now I'm really going to fix everything. I'm going to go on Joe and Mika. I'm going to go on Morning Joe on MSNBC, but it was over to the telephone. Oh, I forgot about the phone interviews with the radio stations.
Yeah.
Where they had the pre-scripted, pre-approved questions.
Yep.
That ended up getting the radio host fired.
Yeah.
So then he goes on with Joe and Mika. Mika, by the way, you know the scene from When Harry Met Sally where Meg Ryan in the deli acts like she's being sexually gratified, let's say? Mm. Yeah. That's how Mika was during this interview.
Oh, I know.
Mika needed a cigarette at the end of it. She was... And Joe's like, you're never this happy when I'm... So here's how it started. It began by Mika accurately, factually introducing him as the President of the United States and the presumptive nominee for 2024. Because until there's a convention, that is the accurate way. It's like when you call somebody president-elect. Until you're sworn in, you're not really the president yet.
Right.
He's the presumptive nominee, and, Angry Joe was very angry. Listen.
Now for something a little different, and from inside the White House, we have a special guest. Joining us now, the 46th President of the United States and presumptive Democratic nominee Joe Biden, calling in to Morning Joe right now. Good morning, sir.
Hey, Mika, I'm more than presumptive. I'm going to be the Democratic nominee.
There you go.
Okay, well.
Oh, he sounds on the top of his game already at the beginning of the interview, doesn't he? There was something really distorted about this. It sounded like he was trying to disguise his identity or something. This could have been an AI-generated voice for all we know.
Could have been. They'll do anything at this point.
Except the AI-generated voice would have, sounded a little more coherent. So
True.
I'm thinking this authentically was the president. Scarborough gets right into it because he had sent a letter to all the Democrats in Congress saying if they tried to remove him from the ticket, get this, it would be a threat to democracy.
Sure.
This is the line they're using, which, by the way, I mean, I've been saying it just as to sort of tweak them. You know, you always try to use their rhetoric against them. It's like, oh, I see. You're protecting democracy by basically going into a room and having a couple of people decide who the nominee is going to be, despite the millions of votes that Joe Biden got. But Joe has actually taken that to heart. And he is now saying any effort to remove him from the ticket because he's mentally incapable is a threat to democracy. Take a listen to this.
Mr. President, that leads to the letter that we just received a few minutes ago. And I'm curious, there's a part of it where you talk about the fact that you got 14 million votes, 87% of the vote. It was an open process. You only had 3 people running against you. You have 3,900 delegates. And then you ask this question, do we now just say the process didn't matter, that the voters didn't have a say? I'm curious, is that an allusion also to Donald Trump and the fact that Democrats, you believe, may now be doing the same thing that Donald Trump tried to do in 2020, and that is overthrow the popular will of Democratic voters?
Please talk about Trump.
Joe, let me say it this way. The reason I've been out on the road so much all over the country, and while Trump is riding around in his golf cart, filling out his golf cart before he even hits the ball. But anyway, he hadn't been anywhere in 10 days. I've been all over the country, number one.
Okay.
And I've gone over the country for several reasons. One, to make sure my instinct was right about the party still wanting me to be the nominee. And all the data shows that the average Democrat out there who voted, the 14 million of them that voted for me, still want me to be the nominee, number one. Number two, the idea that Donald Trump has gained in any substantial way, has his argument to why he should be president is anywhere convincing than it was 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago. It's just not there, and we're just starting to focus on Trump.
We're just starting to focus on Trump. That's all they've been talking about. Is convicted felon, threat to democracy. But, okay, first of all, he's obsessed with Trump's golf game. What was that attempted joke about being in a golf cart, right? Secondly,
and also as if Trump doesn't have some limitations on him because of the lawfare that Biden has put the whole country through. But fine, fair enough. Still, Trump is out there. Trump is doing rallies.
Trump did a rally in Virginia, in fact, with 25,000 people. But I think my favorite part was he said, "I've been all over the country, all over the country." Julie, he went to Philadelphia, which is, an hour away.
Yeah.
And he went to Milwaukee, which is 2 hours away. And that's it.
Yep.
He went to Philadelphia and he went to Milwaukee. Yeah. And that's it. And he said, I've been all over the last 10 days. I've been all over the country.
For a man his age.
That's really something. He needs to rest for another 10 days.
That's right.
Go to Camp David. Cut 3 is music to our ears. Listen.
The bottom line here is that we're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I'm not going anywhere. I wouldn't be running if I didn't absolutely believe that I am the best candidate to beat Donald Trump in 2024. We had a Democratic nominating process where the voters spoke clearly. I won 14 million of those votes, et cetera. So I just want
14 million
I not only believe that from the beginning, but I wanted to reassert it and demonstrate that it's true. And I'm going to be doing that all through this week and from here on.
Yeah, bring it on. All right, we're going to analyze this. This 30 seconds that you just heard is probably worth a half an hour of dissection. I'll attempt to do it in a couple of minutes. We'll get to it in a moment. 5:50. He's not going anywhere, Julie.
WMAL, making sense of world events, because those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
The bottom line here is that we're not going anywhere. I am not going anywhere.
Pause there for a second.
Be running if I...
Did you notice he said we're not going anywhere? And then he immediately pivoted and said, I'm not going anywhere. We. Who's we? Who's we? I think it's he and Jill, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. The whole
We're not
family.
going anywhere.
Yep. And Hunter.
And Hunter, who's attending cabinet level meetings right now. All right. So bottom line, I'm not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere. And why? Why is he not going anywhere? Let's listen. Keep going.
I am not going anywhere. I wouldn't be running if I didn't absolutely believe that I am the best candidate to beat Donald Trump in 2024.
Right. So there you go. When somebody runs for president or any office for that matter, what they need to convey to voters and communicate to the people that they want to represent at any level, whether it's dog catcher, school board, county supervisor, city council, you name it, all the way up to president. The message needs to be, this is what I'm going to do for you as your public servant. This is what I'm going to push as the agenda. This is how I'm going to represent you. This is the policy that I'm going to pursue. When pushed, Joe Biden to rationalize and define the raison d'etre of his 2024 presidential campaign, it all boils down to the one thing he needed to convey to Joe Mika and the elites watching MSNBC. I can beat Donald Trump. That's it. Not taxes, not border, not national
not
security.
What I'm going to do for the country.
Not foreign policy, not domestic policy, not crime, not anything. No, I can beat Donald Trump. That's it. That's all he needs to do.
Well, in fairness to Joe, that is what his side is obsessed with.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, Larry, he's got what we've seen the last couple of days is the unraveling of the coalition, of Biden's coalition. We're seeing, members of Congress have private meetings, leaks about what they say, obvious differences, what they're saying in public. Don Beyer is a great example of this, where he says something in a closed-door meeting. People write it down and report on it, and then he comes out with a statement saying, no, I back. I mean, there is complete chaos. And Biden has got to reassure his base, and that means some of these people in Congress, his sort of loyal followers, they are in disarray. So, and all they care about is, can you keep Trump out of the White House? So that's why
I guess
he's not speaking to the voters right now. He's speaking to his
That's
coalition.
True. That's true. I can beat Trump. That's it. But which is fine on a private phone call to his coalition, to the funders.
I know, but he's talking to Morning Joe. Right.
He's on television.
Yeah.
All right. But I think he forgot. I honestly think he forgot he was on television. All right. A little bit more. Again, I told you this 30-second clip says so much, that everything you need to know. Here, take a listen.
We had a Democratic nominating process where the voters spoke clearly.
Yeah, pause there. Did you?
Yeah.
Did you have a Democratic nominating process? Because I remember Robert F. Kennedy Jr. His name is Kennedy.
Yeah, he's being kept off ballots. Yeah.
He was told, when he tried to run as a Democrat, there would be no debates. There were no debates.
Right.
What kind of Democrat nominating process is this if you have no debates? And when he filed to run in the New Hampshire primary, every voter in New Hampshire was told that no matter who they vote for, their votes would be discounted because they wouldn't let New Hampshire go first. They wanted South Carolina to go first. So every single vote would be canceled out, and their voices wouldn't mean anything. And that's the Democrat nominating process they had.
And Joe and Mika know this, and they don't challenge him.
No, they didn't challenge a damn thing. A real fast one, he also makes a point about all the votes he got.
14 million of those votes, et cetera. So
14 million votes.
I'm not going to believe that from the beginning.
14 million votes. 14 divided by 50 states, he got a little over 200,000 votes per state in a process where he ran unopposed.
Yep.
And that's it. But that said, they're the ones who are defending democracy. So based on their standard, this is what they have to be held up to.
Yep.
Let's get down to, cut 5 is a good one. When Mika said, so how do we know this isn't going to happen again? I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go right to cut 6 then, about whether he's been tested.
In terms of my neurological capacity, I had a neurological physical as well in February. It's released. I released all my records, all of them. And I have a neurological test every single day. Try sitting behind this desk and making these decisions. You know it. Both of you know it. They know it. I'm not bad at what I do. Now, it doesn't mean I never make a mistake. I do. But I'm making those decisions.
Boy, he sounds angry, doesn't he? He sounds like a cranky, angry old man. Yeah.
Yes.
In fact, he got even angrier. Listen, cut 7.
Mr. President, if anybody in my family had a night like that, like if Joe had a night like that, or my kids or anybody, I'd probably want to do some sort of workup and medical workup and make sure he's okay. Have you been tested for any age-related illnesses, pre-Parkinson's, or anything like that that might explain sort of having a night like that where you couldn't finish sentences?
Look, I was feeling so badly before the debate. When I came back, they tested me for, I thought maybe I had COVID, maybe there was something wrong. I had an infection or something. They tested me. They gave me those tests. I was clear.
Yeah.
So, but look, I had a bad.
What Julie, you wanted?
No, tested me. She says, if I had a bad night like that, I'd want to be tested. Were you tested? And then he says, yeah, I was tested for COVID.
Yeah, they stuck a swab up my nose.
Yes. He wasn't.
What?
He didn't
That
have
wasn't a brain
He
test?
didn't have a neurological test. He had a COVID test. It's like saying, I took my temperature. See? Everything's fine.
We've got more on this remarkable phone-in that Joe Biden had. Again, this was to fix everything.
Yes.
This is to let everybody know that it didn't work. Nope. Again, every single time he tries to fix it, it doesn't work. We got more on this throughout the morning. Also at 7:05, Congressman Andy Harris, who's a doctor, and at 8:35, Congressman Ronnie Jackson, who's a doctor. It's 5:24.
Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:37 now. It's Tuesday morning in your nation's capital, 9th day of July. Thanks for tuning in here to O'Connor and Company. We're going to reward you with plenty of news, information, and a smile, maybe a laugh. Also, at 7:05, Representative Andy Harris, member of Congress and a medical doctor. At 8:05, Susan Ferricchio of the Washington Times. And at 8:35, Ronnie Jackson, also a member of Congress, also a doctor. In fact, literally a White House doctor, a presidential doctor. We'll talk to him. I'm going to ask him about Kevin O'Connor and his osteopathic credentials.
Good Lord, give it a rest.
I think that's important. It's relevant to the question at hand.
Oh, you're being serious. I thought you were just giving me a hard time.
That's Julie Gunlock. I am giving you a hard time as well. It's a twofer. It's a bonus. I'm Larry O'Connor, and here's some more information about Joe Biden. It's funny how people are talking now. Hey, now that you mention it, maybe Joe Biden has lost a step or two, as they say. Maybe he's not sharp as a tack behind closed doors. I saw Jake Tapper do a thing yesterday on his show on CNN, Julie. He literally did something that we did 3 years ago.
Yeah, they're just catching up.
He played audio of the Joe and Mika thing like we just did, and then he read back the transcript of one of his answers, which was completely incoherent.
Right.
That made absolutely no sense. And so Jake Tapper then reads it back, deadpan, and looks in the camera and says, this call was supposed to help things. He was doing one of our bits.
Yeah.
But again, we did it 3 years ago. And now you've got all these other people. I love this story. This is a story about a European meeting. All Biden talks about when asked, sir, you've lost a step and maybe you should step down. And all he'll talk about is, but NATO and the world leaders.
I expanded it. Yeah.
And they need me. The world needs me. And all he'll talk about is Asia and Europe and Ukraine and wars. And so obviously he's trying to say, you don't want to give this to an amateur. You want an old hand at national security like me. So it's all about his relationships with foreign countries. Okay. Well, here's a story. G7 summit in Europe, you remember, right? German officials, aware that Biden had fatigue at night, accommodated the president by planning an event with the German Chancellor, Olaf Scholz, in the early evening, at dusk.
Right, during when, those blue plate specials are.
Yeah, the early bird special. That's
early
right.
bird special, there you go.
Informal event, a soiree at the Alpine Resort Schloss Elmau. During the Group of Seven event. It was arranged as a confidential meeting on Ukraine in a relaxed setting. Biden didn't show up. Instead, Secretary of State Antony Blinken arrived and announced that Biden had gone to bed.
He said, Biden needed to get some shut-eye.
Need to
Beauty
get some
sleep.
So I'm here instead. So here's the punchline that I've sort of left out for the reveal. This was not the summit they just had where he said he was so tired and said, no, this was in 2022.
That's right.
This was 2 years ago he was behaving like this, as we all saw. Now the stories are coming out. This is a Wall Street Journal and New York Post article. He went to bed instead of meeting with the German summit.
That's right.
Excuse me, the German chancellor. Here, John Kirby was asked about, rescheduling things and how it's impacting our relationships abroad. Cut 11 is John Kirby.
When he met with governors last week, he suggested he'd like to curtail events that begin after 8 p.m. at night, just because he'd rather focus on resting and doesn't want to have a long day. In your understanding of things, has the National Security Council ever withheld information from him he should have known late at night out of concern he might not be able to process it?
No.
There, that's simple. No. This is all a cover-up. I've been saying this for the last week or so. The White House, including Kamala Harris, who should be brought before a congressional committee about this, they're all engaged in the most massive American political cover-up we have ever seen.
Yeah, and I mean, you've said Jake Tapper just catching up to things we've been talking about for years. But think about when Biden delivered those remarks, or was in Normandy, France for D-Day, and he turned around. Remember, Macron was standing with him.
Yeah, and he turned around and looked the other way.
the opposite direction, and then he left before it was even over.
Right. Well, that's because he had pooped his pants. We believe. Jake Tapper, as I mentioned yesterday, here he is, cut 12.
I really regret it happened. But the fact of the matter is, how can you assure you're going to be on faith that can intervene on your way to go to, work tomorrow? Age wasn't, the idea I'm too old.
The fact of the matter is, how can you assure you're going to be out on your way to go, work tomorrow? Age wasn't, the idea that I'm too old. Keep in mind, that soundbite is supposed to be reassuring to those Democratic supporters who have gone wobbly. Many Democratic officials with whom I've spoken are worried that President Biden and his family and his inner circle appear to be in complete denial, not just about whatever might be wrong with him, but the state of his candidacy.
Yeah, I'm glad that Jake has now joined the cool kids table here, because for the longest time we were the poo-poo heads for doing the exact same thing, because this is not new. We have seen this. We've seen this since they covered for him during the 2020 campaign. It's why he was in his basement. He used a teleprompter while he conducted interviews in that closed environment. This entire thing has been a made-for-TV candidacy and now presidency.
Yeah, and it is the greatest scandal in American political history, American history, period.
Yeah.
This makes Watergate look like, petty theft.
Yes,
this
shoplifting.
This is insane.
Correct. And this is because they had an election to win. They had to stop Donald Trump. And these are the lengths they go to. And they continue to go to and will continue to go to. This is currently now suddenly they're starting to panic. But ultimately, this is all about getting Donald Trump. That's still the focus. And we're going to keep our eye on that prize. It's 5:43. Elon Musk, you've noticed, has gotten red-pilled on a lot of things, but he's really including issues having to do with crime and the border and immigration. Immigration and specifically is sort of one of his pet issues because he is a naturalized citizen. He has come from a foreign country and gone through the arduous process of becoming a citizen. You want to talk about the most adamant enforcers of our immigration laws. It's people who have done so legally, right? You always can tell that. And there is a bill being proposed in the House right now under Speaker Mike Johnson and the Republicans that would make it illegal for a non-citizen to vote. Now, you may think to yourself, well, it's already illegal. Well, yeah, this is to completely make sure that there is no doubt, and it would also provide enforcement measures.
That's right.
It would compel every state to have proof of citizenship.
Yeah, it tells people you're going to get in trouble if you do it.
and provides money to actually enforce the laws so
That's
that
right.
law enforcement can go after people who are illegally voting. And my favorite break is if anybody who's gotten their driver's license recently knows that you're sitting there doing the driver's license and you're answering the questions on the little touch screen there. And then one of the questions is, would you like to register to vote? And you say yes. And then you register to vote. And then there's like a screen that says, under penalty of this or that and da-da-da-da-da, I attest that I'm a U.S. citizen. Click. And that's it. You don't have to show anything. You don't have to prove a damn thing. And if I may, if English is your second language, you probably didn't even read that screen.
Yeah, who reads the fine print?
And you go ahead and register to vote. So this law, it's a bill. If it were to be signed into law, and the president has already said he would veto it, which should raise some questions, would compel you to have to show proof of citizenship before you register to vote. That's all. It's that simple.
Yeah. I just go on, set it up.
So the president said he's going to veto it. Democrats are opposing it. For some reason, not every Republican is behind this, too, which is ridiculous. Confusing. That should be a united front. Elon Musk responded to that, as well as this a thread that somebody on his X News social media site put forward about all of the things that are going on. Wisconsin Supreme Court just reversed the decision on drop boxes. Why do we need drop boxes? There's no pandemic. I was told that the drop boxes were necessary. Temporary for the pandemic, and now they're back in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Elon Musk took to X and said, when combined with mail-in ballots, the system is designed to make it impossible to prove fraud. That's the key. It's like every time you say, hey, I think that this was fraudulent activity, prove it. You can't prove it.
Right.
He says mail-in and drop box ballots should not be allowed.
Right.
Cameras on the in-person voting stations would at least prevent large-scale fraud by counting how many people showed up versus ballots cast. See, that's the key. Every single, one man, one vote is a great theory, except when you're doing mail-in ballots, you don't know. It could be one man, 50 votes.
That's right. Right.
There's no assurance. And so here's Mike Johnson, by the way, real quickly, talking about this bill that they're trying to push through.
We now have so many non-citizens in the country that if only 1 out of 100 of those voted, they would cast hundreds of thousands of votes. If a nefarious actor wants to intervene in our elections, all they have to do is check a box on a form and sign their name. That's it. That's all that's required.
And again, the Democrats say this isn't necessary. This isn't needed. It's already illegal. Okay, I just want to remind everyone that congressmen will literally get up there and vote on a resolution that says ice cream is good, right? Just to make a point, right? But ensuring and reassuring the voters that our elections are legal and legitimate, that's a bridge too far.
Yeah, why don't we bend over backwards to at least give the American people some semblance of assurance that they're even trying to secure the election. And just so you know, the whole idea of non-citizens registering to vote, that doesn't mean that these non-citizens are in fact voting. That's actually not the point, just so you know. You see, the more people you have on the voter rolls, the more people can then be acquired to send in a mail-in ballot, right? So in other words, the people who look at most of your jurisdictions right now, especially in Democrat-run states, the people within the election apparatus are all Democrats. Even the volunteers are union members and members of, whatever has been reformed from the old Acorn corrupt organization. And what they do is they can see who's registered to vote. It's public knowledge. And then mail-in ballots will be submitted for them.
That's right.
And the only harm that might come is that when an individual goes to vote, that they'll have a record that says, oh, well, we already received a mail-in ballot from you. And that's happened to many people. I mean, we hear it every election season. We have people call in and say, oh, that happened to me. I went to vote. And they said, I already voted. And then you do a provisional ballot. Oh, I'm sure it's just some snafu. We'll do a provisional ballot for you. And when you've got 25 to 30% turnout in elections, it's a pretty fair bet especially if you're cynically looking for people who have Latin-sounding names.
That's right. Yep.
Because those are people who have registered. They're probably not going to vote because they probably don't even know that they've registered.
Right.
And then you submit the mail-in ballot. That
There you
gets
go.
counted. Nothing gets checked.
There you go.
The election is secured. And you may say, oh, well, that's just a theory. You're right. It is a theory. Put a law in to ensure that it doesn't happen.
Yes. What's the problem?
You can't step up and say, well, there's no evidence that that has happened. No. That's not how it works. If you know that that could happen, and it certainly could happen, then you write the law to prevent that thing from happening. You don't wait until it has happened. That's all. The voting on this measure should begin. It commences as early as today in the House. Keep an eye on it. It's 5:53.